Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wareham Planning Board meeting for October 17, 2022. I'm going to get things started by having to open the meeting with a roll call. Sherry Quirk?
Here.
Mike Baptiste?
Here.
Jane Gleason?
Here.
Sam Corbett?
Here.
Carl Schultz?
Here.
And Michael King. Full board is present. A little housekeeping first before we dive into the agenda. So we have meeting minutes from February 14 and February 28. I don't, as you mentioned, Kyle, I don't have the revised meeting minutes from the 14th.
Those are, I think what Jane shared with me is the revised from...
This is the revision. So we just need to redline that one
sentence.
that one sentence that kind of ended with no substance. So on page 2, I would entertain a vote that we redline the one sentence reads as, Mr. Schultz stated he thought there was a special process being. Nothing more than that. So it doesn't attest to anything, it doesn't indicate an opinion one way or another, so that being said, I don't think it has any value and really should not be there or hold us up from approving the balance. So I would entertain such a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Mike Baptiste. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Having handled that part of the business, has the board had an opportunity to read the revisions, and are we prepared to vote on approving them?
I have.
Sam, you're all set? Sherry?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't
This is
at
not the
either
revised
of
minutes.
these meetings.
Oh, so you can't vote. Mr. Baptiste?
Happy.
Jane? Were you here for this one?
No.
Got your name on there.
Does it? Oh, for
I believe you were there.
the
Yeah.
February 14th,
Yes.
yes. Yes.
And I was present. So entertain a motion to approve the revised minutes for the Wareham Planning Board, February 14th, 2022.
And just to confirm, because Mr. Corbett does not have the revised minutes. So, but
You do not have the revised minutes. Did you get to review them? You did. You just-
other than the typos,
Yeah.
he still has, the heading is wrong and my name is spelled wrong
On his copy.
on the copy he has.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the revised minutes that got sent out mid-morning today.
Yep. So, I mean, if you're not comfortable voting yea or nay,
Fine.
you can
It was ju-
abstain.
it was just typos.
Right.
Yep. Okay, so, all those in favor of approving the minutes of February 14, 2022? Mike? Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Wanna use my red pen?
We're going to need it again. We've got 2 misspellings, one here. And it appears again, right.
I did see that.
So you're gonna make,
2 that I found.
Yeah.
you're gonna amend with typos?
It's
and-
just, yeah, it's the
That's-
same person's name misspelled twice, 2 different pages.
Did they fix Mr. Gay's?
That's who is misspelled. It's
Okay.
G-A-G,
I-
G-A-J.
That was one of the changes I sent in.
Yeah, I did see that. Thank you very much. Next up would be the minutes for the Wareham Planning Board for February 28th, 2022. 2 small typos, one on page 1, where Attorney Thomas Gay is referred to as G-A-J. So we're going to make the spelling correction there.
Was a couple of places.
Yeah.
Right, and then on page 2, same thing, Attorney Gay was referred to as G-A-J. So we'll make the correction there.
I didn't see it anywhere else.
Yeah, and I glazed right over that, to be honest. That was a good catch. Mike, did you see anything else that you thought needed attention?
Nope.
Sherry, even though you didn't vote, your eyeballs are pretty good.
I did not note anything.
Okay. Sam? Mr. Schultz?
I sent my comments in this morning.
Okay. Entertain a motion to first approve the change for the typographical error in 2 places from Thomas Gage, G-A-J, to Thomas Gay, G-A-Y. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Carl Schultz. All in favor of the change. Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That being said, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Wareham Planning Board, February 28th, 2022, with said corrections. All those in favor? Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Very cool. Okay. There's one thing on the agenda tonight that is, I want to take it out of order. So on preliminary business, item number 6, the High School Building Committee, Kennedy Lane, minor modification request. So it's come before the board that the Wareham Public Schools would like to make a modification to the conditions of approval for the special permit for when they built the high school that indicates that Kennedy Lane be closed and gated, available only to first responders. And they would like to change that to being open during school hours to reduce the strain of traffic on Viking Drive. So is there anyone here that would like to speak to this subject? I need different glasses. You're nothing but a buzzball back there.
Excuse, this is public comment?
This is not, that's right.
But is the applicant, I'm just, process question.
Yeah.
Is the applicant here?
I don't believe the applicant is here. And this, just to kind of clarify, because there's a request for a minor modification to a site plan review, I do think that this should be held in a public comment forum and not as just occasional business.
No, I'm okay with public comment. I just wanted to know if the applicant was here.
Yeah, they're not here.
Is Mr. Buckland here to provide input?
Is Mr. Buckland online?
Yes, he is.
Okay, ma'am, you can sit for the time being. Ken, can you share some color on this, please?
Yeah, this was an original special permit that was issued as a site plan review by the planning board for the construction of the high school. At the time, the neighboring residents of Kennedy Lane had identified that as a problem and wanted to maintain safety on their road and decided that they'd like to have the road closed off. The planning board, in their deliberations, decided that the road could be closed off except for emergency access, and the Viking Drive would be the only access to the complex of the school buildings in the area. The superintendent and the business manager came to me and asked what the process would be to modify that, since they were feeling the need to open up the access on Kennedy to make it less of a burden on the intersection of Marion Road and Viking Drive. And they asked the process, and I told them that there was a two-step process. One was a minor modification. It was something that would be done by a letter request and could be deliberated by the planning board. And if they thought it was appropriate, if they thought it was a minor modification, they could issue the approval of the change in the special permit conditions. The other option was that the planning board would say it was a major modification and require a public hearing to consider the implications of opening up Kennedy to regular traffic during school hours. And if you want to make modifications in the conditions of the permit, that's your consideration as to whether or not it's a minor or a major modification.
Okay. If we elected that this was a major modification, in our opinion, and put this process off until we could properly post a public hearing, am I crossing a line by letting anybody speak to this tonight, or can I still take a little bit of public comment?
You can take public comment if you feel it's appropriate to make the determination as to whether or not this is a minor or major modification.
Okay, that's kind of the way I was interpreting it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have another question for Mr. Buckland.
Sure.
Through Mr. King to you, Mr. Buckland, in reading the recommendations, and I can't remember from which of the various committees studying the issue, the move of town administration to the Deacon School and moving the police office or the police station complex to the current town hall, there was a mention of the need to open this access. Is that relevant to our consideration?
The access is always open to emergency access, so I don't think it's a consideration since the police is emergency access has emergency access through that way.
Okay, it wasn't presented that way as I read the recommendation, but okay, so that could be a future consideration of an impact if we agree to open the way.
Okay.
I think there's another consideration is that the congestion that occurs at Viking Drive and Marion Road is also going to affect the emergency access from the police station if the police station were to go into the existing town hall.
All right, thank you. Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Janice Martin. I live on 1 Church Ave, the corner of Kennedy and Church Ave. We have seen over the past month where the gate has been opened against the special permit that was granted on a 24-hour basis, a significant increase in traffic that's causing a safety issue, especially during morning arrival and dismissal times. Kennedy Lane, I'm not sure most of you know, it's a very narrow, non-sidewalked road. There are kids walking up and down there, and I am able to stand out on my porch and watch cars weave in and out of children, doing 40 and 50 miles an hour, flying down through that access, and the opposite direction as well, not observing the stop sign. I've watched Eversource trucks come through the entire school complex and go through the stop sign without observing it. I feel that it's a real safety hazard to those children walking and being dropped off by their parents, which has been the case we've lived there for almost 5 years at this point. People are dropping off and picking up their children. Now that is compounded by people cutting through the access point with that gate open. There are also cars parking on both sides of that access road where the gate is in both directions, and cars coming down and up with a very narrow path of access. So we feel as though it's a real safety hazard, and request that there would be a safety hearing to take place, something. I understand the congestion on Viking Road backing up onto Marion, but Marion's a main throughway with sidewalks and a crossing guard at the times where children are present, entering and leaving the school. This is not the case on the corner of, or where Kennedy Lane comes out from the high school.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? No, Mr. Slavin, you can't speak.
Good evening, everybody. Alan Slavin, 36 Oak Street, Wareham, also a selectman of the town of Wareham. This issue goes back a long time ago with the high school, probably in the 90s, I think, if I remember right. And it was part of the conditions that that road be closed for the same reasons they just spoke about. It probably will come back before all of us in the next couple of years as we take the town hall and convert it, but we're probably going to have to make a road somewhere else. Tim Knight, who had a house across the street from me on Oak Street, used to have an issue with it because he owns a house on that particular road. Tim has passed away some time ago, and I actually had to work with the town to make sure that gate stayed closed. It is a safety issue the way it is right now, and if you're going to change this at all, it definitely is a major modification because it is a major piece of the conditions, and to switch over to a minor modification would definitely be wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else, either present? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Liz Knight, and I'm the wife of who Alan was just talking about, Tim, who was fought it. I've lived in the house, it's 3 Kennedy Lane. I've lived there for 40-plus years, so I've seen this, be a struggle several different times when someone's wanted to keep the gate open. I remember going to see Dave McKinnon about it. I know that my husband fought it several different times when people just left the gate open, when somebody thought it would be a good idea. And what Janice Martin is saying is absolutely true. It's total chaos. It's such a safety issue down there. It has, it's been that way. I remember when we first started, had to fight with it. I remember walking out of our house with my kids when they were little, and they just jumped up on me and terrified because it was just awful. So there's that, and there's a whole thing about more. So everything she was saying about the cars on both sides going this way and that way. I know someone tried to get out of the high school the other day, and they couldn't get out. Someone was parked right in the middle. They waited till their kid got in the car. So there's a lot of different scenarios going there. And then if the gate is shut, sometimes they go down, they shut, turn around, it makes it worse. It's all over the place. And as far as the amount of cars, I know that in the last few years, they're saying there's more drop-offs. Well, way back when, there were a lot more people in the high school. There were a lot more school students. More recently, Minot Forest students were there, and their parents, they've been moved back to their school, to the new elementary school. So that cuts down on it. But there were an awful lot more people at the high school than, way back when, than there are now. And it shouldn't. It should be figured out somehow, but that road is an absolute disaster. My other concern, huge concern, is emergency access. If something happens, a few years ago, there was a threat at the middle school, first day of summer school. I don't know if you were all aware of that. They set up a base there, the police did. There were SWAT teams, police cars, the helicopters, that was their main place. But God forbid if something happened during school hours at 2 o'clock when everyone was trying to get out of school. No one would get in there. It is a real disaster. the safety issue, you know, I mean, I'm very concerned for the students, the traffic, the people driving, but, you know, the foot traffic is a big concern. The other thing is, you know, it's such a huge safety issue, and it's also a huge town liability. You know, it's just an accident waiting to happen. If anybody wants to go park in my driveway and sit and watch it someday, you're welcome to it, because it's not pretty. So I respectfully request that that not be open to the public at any time.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here to say something? What about online? No?
As usual, I have another question.
Sir?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Rowley, who's been around. Mr. Rowley, do you remember this special permit? And I'm particularly concerned, can you speak to the quality of the road? I've been over there, I've driven by it. I agree, it's not a very well-constructed road, but does it meet specifications for a true road in town?
I haven't been on Kennedy Lane for quite some time. I can't speak to that. Although I was here when the high school was built, don't remember the details of the special permit, although I did read portions of it. The only recent change that I've seen is that Church Avenue has been repaved, much better than it used to be. But the other thing that obviously of concern is the intersection of High Street, because that's a very sharp intersection, and there's a lot of traffic on High Street. So with respect to the major versus minor modification aspect of it, it would seem that the applicant who's requesting this should make some sort of a formal presentation to your board so that you've got some evidence as to why it should be changed, maybe what the traffic is today that they're experiencing and so forth. But I don't have any specific recommendations for you at this time.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Anybody else on the board have any questions or comments, or? You have to come back up.
Okay, that's fine.
I also have a copy of the permit with me, if you don't have that, you have it.
We have it.
We have.
Just with respect, Janice Martin, 1 Church Ave again, just with respect to the fact that that gate has been open against the special permit conditions for the past 5 weeks? 5 weeks. We've gone down and closed it ourselves, quite honestly. Is that a condition, if this was to be set to a major modification, would that gate be shut per your decision until a decision is made?
I plan to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that the zoning enforcement officer be contacted to enforce the special permit. And I guess we could close the high school by revoking the special permit.
A lot of students would be happy about
Yeah,
that,
there'd
I'm
be some
sure.
happy
Well,
kids.
no, we don't, that's not a consequence we would like to see. I was, sorry, I was being facetious.
I know.
But we could request that the zoning enforcement officer enforce. So I make a motion that we request the zoning enforcement officer enforce the conditions of the special permit with respect to the gate until this issue is resolved in some manner.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
So,
So we have a motion on
we
the,
have a second.
a second.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Schultz to forward a letter to zoning enforcement to enforce the special permit condition of approval, hence having the gate closed and locked. I'm assuming it's a breakaway gate, so,
Is it locked? Yeah.
right,
There is a padlock on it.
okay. So, is the key in it?
No, I
Oh, okay. So we have a motion to request the zoning enforcement officer to enforce the condition of the special permit, close the gate, keep it closed until such point that we can get the applicant in front of us to provide details in a true public forum as to why they feel that this is needed, and so that we can make a recommendation, or determination whether it's a minor or a major modification. So we have that motion by Carl Schultz, seconded by Sam Corbett. So I will put it to a vote to approve this action. Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we will forward this to zoning enforcement, get the gate closed, and then invite the school department to come and talk to us about why they feel that this is needed and how.
So I'll make that second motion. I move that we table discussion on the high school building committee request regarding Kennedy Lane determination, major, minor modification. I guess we can continue it either to the 17th or the 28th. Or do we have a meeting on the 28th? It's very close to Thanksgiving.
We do have a meeting scheduled for the 28th.
So I know the 17th is busy. So I move that we table discussion on this item until our meeting on the 28th, and request that the applicant make a presentation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion to table till the 28th of November, motion by Carl Schultz, seconded by Sam Corbett. All those in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we will bring this back up on the 28th.
City Chair, through you, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Have you called the police about the parking?
We've called numerous officers through the neighbors.
All right, understood.
Yeah, I haven't personally, but I've also seen them down there sometimes. I would think
Oh, yeah, if you're going to comment, you have to come forward.
I would think,
Yeah, it doesn't get picked up on the tape.
I would think that, that they would want the gate open, the gate shut, so that, that it's, because it is such a safety hazard. And I also think, another thing that I didn't say before, but, as I did, well, I guess I did, a huge liability for the town and the school.
Well, my point was, maybe they don't know that it's open.
Yeah, I know that I've seen police cars down, around there, but, I've also seen them down there when it's been shut as well.
My concern is, I know the area, if you have cars parked on each side, nothing's going to get through there.
Not really?
So is there no parking signs there?
No, I don't believe so. No,
No.
I don't think so.
I think
There
the
is the stop sign at the corner.
immediate fix is just to get the gates closed, and then we can start addressing
Yep.
the rest of it.
And it has, this is, I know, as I started to say before, there's several times I have dealt with it, my husband dealt with it, but people would just leave the gate open as they are right now, and it would, after everybody researched it and looked into what was going on with it, it always ended up shut. And, because it is safety and liability, and, I'm really concerned for the students there. So,
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
for your time.
Mr. Slavin?
Just a quick question, Michael. The 17th, is this going to be a public hearing?
It's not the 17th, it's 28th.
Is it going to be a public hearing?
Yes,
So you'll have to post it and
correct.
the whole thing?
Another good reason for pushing it
I
out till the 28th.
didn't move that we were going to hold a public hearing.
No, that's why I'm asking.
Well, I think this subject deserves a public hearing.
Okay. Well, then we could amend my motion to add that to the,
Make it a-
Or we could just make a new motion.
Yeah, rescind your motion and make a new one.
okay.
Thank you.
Or amend it. No, I'm big on amending. Let's just amend it.
Okay, so I move that we amend I move that we rescind my former motion and replace it with, I move that we continue the discussion of the high school's request to open Kennedy Lane to a public hearing
On?
on 11/28 and invite the applicant to
To be
part-
present.
to be present, make a presentation.
Yeah.
And then we need to notice the public hearing accordingly.
Okay.
Second.
Mr.
Motion.
Chairman, before you vote, basically, Carl, what you've said is that you want a major modification of the
Exactly.
special permit, correct?
No, that's not what I was saying. But let's discuss what I thought I was saying is, I'm ready to make the motion that it's a major a major modification. But what I was really saying was, I believe the board felt that it was appropriate to get public comment on the decision.
But isn't it,
Making the decision, no, I'm asking your advice. I was just, the decision, is it major or minor, in order to take public comment. I think-
obviously, the major modification requires a special permit. I guess you can decide if you want to under a minor permit, but the major one would require it, which
Right.
means then you've got everything in order.
But, right, if we request a public hearing on 11/28, now we have all our ducks covered. If we decide it is a major modification, we've already got the public hearing scheduled.
Well, usually that decision is made before you even schedule a public hearing, because you will have deemed the information important enough either one way or the other.
Let's
That's all I'm
just call it
saying.
major.
In this case, the applicant has neglected to show and provide information on their behalf as to why they're requesting this.
Okay, well, okay, if you're not asking for a major modification, then that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, we were just trying to create I think Mr. Slavin's recommendation was that we need to create a forum for taking public comment. So if we want, I'm prepared to decide that this sounds like a major modification, but the applicant's not here.
We'll have to come back twice if we go the way it's going now.
Yep.
We'll have to come back twice because we'll make a decision, it's a minor or a major. From the information that we have in front of us and the input from the public right off the bat, it's definitely a major change. I think
Okay.
the board feels that way. Let's do it once and do it right instead of going, pieces here, pieces there.
All right,
That's confusing.
so,
Simple as easy.
we need a,
Let's rescind all previous motions, and
we're back to square one.
Square
All
zero.
motions, do we have to vote on rescinding?
we're not going to rescind the notification to the zoning enforcement officer, though.
No.
Yes, we'll keep that. Okay, so I would entertain a motion that the Wareham Planning Board consider the request by the school committee to reopen Kennedy Lane a major modification and schedule a public hearing for 11/28 to begin to take public comment and to allow the applicant an opportunity to appear before the board.
Second.
Well,
Carl made the
We
motion.
need-
So I'll move.
You'll move.
So
Yeah,
moved.
Yeah, you own this motion, whether you like it or not.
I was trying to be,
Okay, so, motion by Carl Schultz, seconded by Mike Baptiste, all in favor. Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we will schedule a public hearing for 11/28 and consider this a major modification and start the process. Thank you. Okay. Item number 2, 150 Tohonet Road, New Leaf, Borrego, extension of time, special permit request, which also includes 27 Charge Pond Road, since it's the same applicant, same request.
Good evening. Dean Smith from New Leaf Energy. I was here at your previous meeting. I have with me tonight Jared Connell. He's our Director of Project Development for the New England region of New Leaf. Since I appeared before the board previously, we provided a letter from our General Counsel, which describes the ownership interests of these projects. Each is held under a project company that was a fully owned subsidiary of Borrego at the time. Those were subsequently sold to third-party owners, as I described at the last meeting. 150 Tohonet is owned by Sunrays, which is owned by REA Investments, and 27 Charge Pond Road is owned by DSD. There's some additional information in the letter regarding the financial stability of those companies. Subsequent to that, there was an ownership transition of the Borrego development business, which was reformed as New Leaf Energy. So we're still the same people under a new ownership entity, and we have some responsibilities to the system owners under the agreements that the projects were sold by. Jared is here. He can give more information on the group studies and the utility side of things that's delayed the projects. If the board has additional questions, there were a number of questions around that issue at the last meeting. So we're here to answer any remaining questions that the board has and respectfully request your approval of a time extension on these permits.
Thank you. Sir, what is it you want to offer us?
Well, I can answer any questions that you folks have. The main item that Dean mentioned from last time that you guys had some inquiries about were the interconnection process, which is really the main reason that is driving the need for an extension request. In this case, simply put, I mean, we never expected to be here asking for a time extension. Our applications to the utility, which I think went in as part of our application for site plan review, I don't expect anyone to remember back from, I think that was spring of 2020, but our applications to the utility for interconnection predated that by about 12 months' time. So under normal circumstances, we would expect a full interconnection cycle from application to approval in about a year. In this case, the utility, the local utility here, Eversource, has gone into what they call a group study process. So there are several groups that they've grouped together by geographic and electrical relationship regions in the southeastern part of Massachusetts. This area is part of what they're referring to as the Plymouth group. And so under normal circumstances, an application would go right through, and it should take about, with all their reviews, a year is a generous amount of time to get to approval and interconnection agreement stage. In this case, I don't think they started the impact study until the fall of 2020. So even having begun then, we would have expected an agreement within a few months' time of that. And here we sit in fall of 22, and we still don't have an agreement yet. The good news is the preliminary group studies for all of the groups have started to come out of Eversource. This Plymouth group got its preliminary results this past spring. And the situation continues to have been dynamic. We would have expected our agreements fairly shortly on the heels of the preliminary group study results, but all of these groups, need to go in front of the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities because there's cost sharing among the applicants and among ratepayers involved in the upgrades that get prescribed for the projects. And so there's a adjudicatory process with the Mass DPU that is just now being initiated for the very first group study. That's going to be the group that consists of projects in Marion and Fairhaven, and the Plymouth group is up next. And so the current forecasted date for the final approval, after which we can begin construction of the sites, is right now spring of 2023. So that's the reason for needing extension. And certainly when we started permitting, we never expected anything to take this long. We like to line up our processes such that the permitting happens in fairly close conjunction with the interconnection cycle. But as I mentioned, we had applied to the utility more than a year in advance of our application to your board. So we've diligently pursued all the other aspects of the project, and we stand, as Dean mentioned, the projects have been sold and financed, and with the extension of the permit, and so long as things stay on track with the current schedule for springtime for the interconnection agreement, we plan to be under construction shortly thereafter.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I do, but I'll go last.
Sherry?
Go first.
I do have a couple. As I understand the proceeding before the DPU, this is a proceeding where you are, more or less litigating the total amount of the upgrades that will be necessary for this study group, and then the allocation to the projects as well as to the system. Am I understanding that right?
I think so. Fortunately, it won't be me adjudicating anything. It really, the study was done by Eversource, so it's really, it's on them to go in front of the Department of Public Utilities, defend their means and methods for the study, their results, and the resulting costs of the study. So there's a lot of very smart and intelligent engineers that perform those studies that will be doing that work.
Yeah, and so I see it in two parts. One part is what are the total amount of upgrades necessary? And the second part is how will the costs be allocated? Will they be allocated to the system, or will they be allocated to individual projects?
The projects that move now, I will explain my rudimentary understanding of how this will work. The projects will pay a share of the overall upgrades now, but the idea is that the utilities are going to be upgrading the system, not only for the projects that are coming now, but to accommodate future energy changes to the energy system. So, future solar projects, future load growth in the area, baking a lot of those things in. And so they'll pay a pro rata share based on the total amount of new projects that the upgrades will enable, not just the projects that are in the current group that was part of the Plymouth Group study today.
But nevertheless, each project will end up with some allocation, not necessarily just based on that group of projects, but there's going to be some denominator out there.
There's a large denominator for, like, they're building new substations and transformers and lines and everything to accommodate as much renewable energy as they feel the area can host in the future. And so the projects that are coming now are paying their pro rata share of what the total amount that they think all these upgrades will eventually enable.
Do you have any idea at this point what that amount will be for your projects?
For our projects, I don't know off the top of my head. All the preliminary results are published. They're part of a DPU docket. All the data is available to the public. For these individual projects, off the top of my head, I wouldn't want to misquote something tonight.
What I looked at on the DPU website seemed to have a lot of redactions in it, I think for either commercial sensitivity or, for identifiable information related to individual projects. So I was not able to ascertain that. I'll take another look to see if I can figure it out. Is there some dispute among the various parties about how the costs should be allocated to the Plymouth group of projects?
No, I don't think so. And I do want to say the results, the reason for the adjudicatory process is so that the DPU has oversight on the work that Eversource and their engineers did. So it's not to say that it's final. If they find a flaw in the means or methods or whatever, that would need to get corrected through. That's the whole point of the adjudicatory process, to provide some oversight there and make sure that they've got it right.
Now I did see some information in the file that seemed to indicate that the allocations to some of the projects could be so high or so large as to make them unfeasible. Do you see that as an eventual result here?
Well, it's tough to say because who knows what twists and turns it will take through the DPU process, but as we understand it right now, the preliminary results that Eversource presented, particularly for this Plymouth group, are generally favorable for the projects.
Okay. I'm good for now. I may have a few questions.
Follow-ups?
Yep.
Mike?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Sam? Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps through you to the board, with the applicant present. I've done a lot of thinking about this. I've done some review. A lot of time has passed since this project was originally approved. So two things. And actually, and as been noted, there was a procedural error in the original approval of the special permit. It was not questioned at the time, so there's no question that the special permit is in effect. However, this now gives us an opportunity, so I'd like to take two actions, I think two actions. One, I'd like to review the conditions of approval and make sure that they're still relevant, appropriate, and adequate at this point in time, and ensure if there were any concerns from the Conservation Commission, they're properly reflected in any extension that we might give, which I believe we have the ability to do. So I would like a review of the conditions of approval, which means we all need to get copies of that and review it, and make sure that they're still relevant at this time, and see if there's any updates or changes we'd like to make as part of any extension, and make sure that anything from the Conservation Commission, if there was an order of conditions, that it flows through to our special permit extension. That's the first point. The other thing is since these projects were approved 2 years ago, we've gone through quite a number of other projects, and we've learned more each time. And my particular area that I've spent a lot of time on has been the decommissioning plans. So with respect to that, I'd also like to review the decommissioning plan with an eye to two things. One, most of the decommissioning plans we've approved in the past were silent. I didn't find any comment on the steps, costs, and considerations for decommissioning the auxiliary battery systems, and further in the, I don't remember what it's called, the bond that's set aside to protect the town should the default occur, doesn't speak to any costs for removing batteries. So I believe at a minimum that the decommissioning costs and the bond for the town needs to be reviewed. And as you know, we're currently requiring regular reviews of those costs on all projects that we're approving now. So it would seem appropriate that we would, at this time, make sure that the costs are appropriate to what we know now, and that costs for battery, auxiliary battery storage decommissioning and the steps are included in the decommissioning plan before we approve any extension. So having heard, well, the board can comment, and then I think we can let the applicant comment if you want.
Okay, very good.
Can we add to that list of
Oh, sure,
items?
sure.
Add
That's
a third, that we get some confirmation of there being no PFAS involved?
a what?
No
Confirmation that no PFAS are involved in.
Oh, in the panels, PFAS is a concern that we're trying to understand about the impact of solar panels, and particularly runoff from the installed panels. So, yeah, certification, that's a good, thank you, Jane. I forgot to add that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that added.
Ken, do we still have Ken on the line?
Ken was up there a minute ago.
He's hiding.
Yeah, you got me still.
Okay, just making sure you're not sleeping. I have a question, Ken. If we move forward on the comments and questions presented by the board tonight and do some deeper review and elect not to act on the request for the extension, which is fast approaching the deadline, does that open a window that creates a problem for us? Does it, like, create a pseudo grant of the extension? Or are we?
No, I think the risk is to the applicant that you don't make a decision in the time frame that you have available to make a decision.
Okay, so our election to dig deeper into this before acting on it has no negative effects to the town. It's more on the applicant's part. I just want
That's my understanding of the process, yes.
Okay. Because I happen to agree with Carl. I think the process that this project was approved under needs some deeper review, especially after 2 years of changes, and more knowledge being gained by the board on these solar projects. And I do remember, I'm surprised that you didn't pick up somewhere in the recordings, but the decommissioning was a huge sticking point on this project.
I have to go back and review that, so
Because
I'll be honest, I didn't review those YouTube videos yet. I've reviewed a lot of other ones, but not...
That was actually a sticking point for me, because the math that they used at 47 or 48,000 panels worked out to somebody taking that whole thing down for about $3 a panel. And I had a hard time wrapping my head around that. So I think reviewing the decommissioning process and the bond that's going to protect the town merits looking at.
And they were all silent on the auxiliary battery storage, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there was no discussion at all on the auxiliary batteries. So I would definitely say that there's definitely some more work to be done on the board side prior to even entertaining this subject.
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Buckland, in good faith effort to work with the applicant on this approach, do we have the ability, like if we get to 12/1, which I think is the cutoff date for the first applicant, do we have the ability to kind of extend that till we complete this process?
I think that would be a reasonable action to take, to extend it while you work it out with any, because I think it's reasonable to reconsider the conditions of the permit while you're extending to determine if there's anything that's changed or different from the previous decision.
Okay, so that would give us, if we thought we were moving forward in a positive manner, or at least a cooperative manner, to grant them some more time before we have to make a decision.
That's right.
I hate hard deadlines sometimes when we bring something up.
Sherry, did you have a follow-up, or you're good?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think if we can get some additional time, that would be a good thing. I think the alternative is to simply deny the request for extension, which puts it on you guys to refile. And I would imagine that that's something to be avoided if we can, since you do have the zoning freeze.
Okay, so is there anybody else that wants to speak to this while we're...
Well,
no, we don't have
it's not a public hearing.
Not a public hearing, I take that.
You could decide whether you want to. I have a question, though, to the applicant. Did my questions and comments and requests make sense to you, and are you okay with what I'm asking?
Yes, they made sense. I would have to pull the decommissioning estimates to see what was and wasn't included at the time. We do include amounts for decommissioning the battery systems in our more recent estimates. I'm not sure if this one was before or after that.
It probably was.
That was changed.
Yeah, if you could actually compare the numbers that you were using 2 years ago to the numbers you're using now, and also make sure the cost escalators that are part of our bylaw were included, and a regular review process, which we're asking for now, rather than just stating we'd do it up front, and then 20 years from now, we'd like to have regular reviews and adjustments of the cost as more information is known, because this is still fairly new technology. And the other thing that I've been pushing to ask for is a certification that at decommissioning time, that the panels will not be put in a hole in the ground, rather they will be recycled using the best technology available
At that time.
at the time in the future.
What we really usually anticipate in that case is that by the time that these systems reach their end of life, that there's a large enough volume of this material that's being generated that it becomes profitable for companies to recycle those.
Recycle,
But at this
So-
point, there is no recycling.
There's not enough volume right now for it to be profitable for people, so
And
they
that's
aren't
why I'm
recycled
saying,
right now.
giving a little flexibility, say, best technology available at the time.
Okay, and you also wanted some additional information about PFAS?
PFAS, yes.
Yeah.
Particularly, I know PFAS are involved in manufacture of almost all the panels, and if you crush them and throw them in a hole in the ground at the end. But we're also interested in certifying that they don't leach.
Okay, we do have access to some studies where there were damaged modules that went through leach testing, so I can present that to the board as well.
Right, that would be useful.
Yeah, the best thing I can advise you is any claims or points that you want to make concerning safety, make sure you've got documentation to back it up, because we don't accept hearsay. It's got to be documented, or don't bother.
Okay.
All right, so,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, ma'am.
there's one other thing I noticed, I thought, is that for an extension request like this, a public hearing is part of it. Did I see that correctly?
I don't think so, but, I mean, there was a request for a public hearing, but I don't know what the process is for that.
Well, I think based on our request for all of this, I think the next schedule, we should probably schedule a public hearing for,
I'm okay with getting that public input. That's never bad. It adds time, but it's never bad.
well, I mean, these projects they're big, and there's a lot of emotion involved, so I think it's only right that the public be invited to comment on it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue discussion on 150 Tohonet and 27 Charge Pond Road. You want to speak before I make my motion, because this is not a public, it's up to the chair to let public comment.
Do you folks have anything else left to say?
Just a question, I guess, for me. So I took notes on what you guys would like to do here. I think it's on Dean and I to get back to you about the decom calculation and methodology, and whether that includes the battery, and some information on PFAS. With the other two, where I think you folks wanted to review the Concom conditions and the conditions in your own approval, and I assume if anything comes out of that, you'll let us know, and we
Right.
can get
Yeah.
you some info. Okay.
But just a little bit of an amplification, I want to review the cost schedule.
Yeah.
So it's not just, but do we need to bring the cost schedule forward based on better information? And
Okay. Fair enough.
it's up to you whether you want to let public comment before I make my motion. And
Yeah, okay. Well, you folks, thank you very much for appearing.
I guess
Don't worry, Annie, I see you.
Well, wait, before we...
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask one other thing that occurred to me. So I think our request for the extension predates the first expiration that's coming up, I think, as soon as next week. So I think that allows us all time to work through this. And then the second one is sometime in January or December, I think.
Just keep in mind that our willingness to go forward, review information, and have a public hearing and take all of the information into account before we make a decision does not by default grant an extension.
No, I did definitely understood, yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that's
Yeah.
understood.
Yep.
Okay.
So just to clarify, I thought Ken sent a clarification. Ken, when do these requests expire? I thought 12/21 was the first one.
That's what I have for 150, I believe.
Okay, and then the second one for 25 or 27 is after that, right?
I think it's the other way around, actually.
Oh, okay. I was going by dates that Ken sent out.
27 was on 10/20/22, is what my notes say.
But Ken was going to go back and check that to make sure that accounted for the 20-day notice period.
Appeal period, yeah.
And 150, I've got, my notes say 12/29/22,
Ken came back and said 12/1.
12/21.
I thought it said 12/1, but I misread.
Well, either way, I don't see us getting a public hearing scheduled, getting more information, and then acting on it in time to avoid either one of these.
So we would probably need a motion, though, to sort of continue discussion so that there's no legal risk.
We'll just toll the period. We will toll the.
You'll make the motion then, so use the right words. Okay, so,
We know we're not in jeopardy.
no, 10/20 is at risk. That date would be at risk.
Okay,
Could I
Thursday.
add something? I think at the last meeting, Mr. Buckland did discuss that, and the fact that we requested the extension prior to the expiration, that the board had whatever time they felt was necessary to consider it. So we requested the extension in time, so you have as much time as you need to consider
That's
it.
okay.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we're not doing something that we shouldn't be.
May I make another request, Mr. Chairman, which is if you have some information that would provide us with data on what is being discussed by Eversource in terms of costs for the Plymouth Group,
Sure.
I would appreciate seeing that.
So the Plymouth Group, because I'm reading the article, and it says that National Grid is going to invest up to $472 million.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's for the Plymouth Group study. It wasn't clear how that,
I think that's a different
That-
project.
That sounds like a different one, yeah.
Okay. And my understanding is that a substantial amount of these investments in upgrading the grid ends up being borne by the ratepayer anyway. It doesn't really fall on the developer of the solar field. It ends up being in people's electric bills.
No, that's actually not the way that it's designed. So there will be a portion that's initially funded by ratepayers, and then as projects build out the full capacity of the upgrades that happen, the projects will each pay their fair share as they come along.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. So I would entertain a motion.
wait, are you going to allow public comment or not?
Not here.
I don't think so. I think that this is probably better suited to the actual, a true public hearing. I'm sorry, who said that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not right.
It was supposed to be under my breath because what I'm looking at is things you need to ask from these people before we agree on something, so.
Well, that's nice, Tricia, but I would never say that about you, so I don't appreciate it.
I didn't say it about you,
Yeah.
Michael, I just said it about the whole situation.
All right, so, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
I think at this point, I would entertain a motion to continue 150 Tohonet Road and 27 Charge Pond Road to a date, I don't know, can we get it on the 28th? You think we're
I
jamming
don't-
too much in?
I don't know what's on the calendar for the 28th.
Right now, it's just this Kennedy Drive, Kennedy Lane.
So if we're going to do a public hearing on this,
That gives us a month to work on getting information from them, being well-versed in it, well-prepared, so that when they do come forward, we actually know what we're talking about, because we've had the material and enough, and it's providing they get it to us.
right, and we need some information, some help from
Right, we need
planning
the
office
origi-
about the original,
The original special permit.
yeah.
Okay.
And we got to find what the order from conservation was.
Okay, so then I would,
And I think we should also presume that Fearing Hill is just not going to die on the 17th.
no,
And Zero Charge Pond is not going to,
I believe Ferring Hills already asked for a continuance till the 2nd of November.
we don't meet on the 2nd of November.
Our next
They
meeting.
were
12th,
saying-
I missed a digit.
Oh, the 12th, whatever the first meeting is.
The
yes.
12th.
Yeah, I said 17th, I meant the
Yeah.
12th, I'm sorry.
Yes,
12, 14 would be 26th, so
yeah. So, but I mean, right now, they only got one item on the agenda for the 28th, so I think that let's just lock this
Is it the 28th or
in.
the 26th?
28th.
Then it can't be the 12th. 14 from 28th would be 14.
I'm looking at the December calendar, and the 12th is highlighted. We don't meet on the 14th, which is a Wednesday.
Wait, are we talking about December or November?
December. November would be the 14th.
November 28th. Right now,
but-
the only thing on that
I
schedule
want
is
to go back.
Kennedy Lane.
You said, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Yeah,
We were talking about Fearing Hill,
well, Ferring Hill's not on the docket right now. Let's
except that I was trying to think about how busy the 28th was going to be.
Ferring Hill's not on the docket for the 28th at this point.
And I'm saying it's not going to finish on the 14th, and I think we should leave time on the 28th. is
Well,
what I
we
was
can
trying-
put them down on the agenda. If we get to them, we get to them. If we don't, we don't. Right now, these folks are in front of us looking for answers, and
All right,
Ferring Hill's
I'm
not.
sorry, we're not, you asked how busy the docket was. That's why I brought it up.
One item right now. That's it.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry for the confusion.
No problem. All right, so I would entertain a motion to continue discussion on 150 Tohonet Pond Road and 27 Charge Pond Road
As a public.
as a
hearing.
public hearing to Monday, November 28th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Jane Gleason. All those in favor? Jane?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
Aye.
Sam?
Sorry, aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Question on that. Do you want notices to be mailed out to abutters as well?
Absolutely. If it's a public hearing, they should be.
Okay,
Can we get the documents that we need, you know, like, next week, so that we have a week or two to review this, at least from the planning board side, from the planning
you'll
office?
have them by the end of this week, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so then it'll be on, maybe you or Sonia can send a letter to the proponent that we want the decommissioning plan, the PFAS statement, and that was it, I think, from their part.
Oh, no, Sherry wanted some numbers.
On,
On the costs that Eversource is proposing to allocate to these projects.
okay, and the Eversource expenditures, can we ask them that we have that information in the same time frame, so that the board has a solid 3 weeks to review it and understand it before we bring them back?
We can try.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, so 150 Tohonet and 27 Charge Pond for the 28th of November. At which point, the public will be more than welcome to speak their minds, and we will listen to everything that they have to say. Next up, Bay Point Covenant Release and Bay Point Tripartite Release. I thought I saw Tim. Yep. My glasses again.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
Afternoon.
Tim Fay, Stone Street Corporation.
So, we're looking for some covenant releases for, the description on the agenda is horrible. So explain exactly which part of the project you're looking for covenant releases on?
So I believe Mr. Buckland has the covenant release information for Phase 2 on State
That's correct.
Drive. Surety was placed, which is the tripartite agreement, which should release the covenant, I believe. I believe it's an administrative function that emanates from the board and not from me,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
When the as I understand it, Mr. Chairman, when the tripartite agreement was agreed to in April, we should have released the covenant, or at least a part of the covenant, because the tripartite agreement
Was in place and the bond
was in
was
place.
secured.
Yeah, and the bond was, so that was a procedural. And by the way, Mr. Fay, we have the same problem for the first covenant and the first tripartite agreement. We need to go back and, I think, administratively fix those as well. But I'll bring that up later. All right, so I think there's a motion in what we had for a partial release of the covenant, because I don't think the tripartite agreement covers Phase 3.
No, Phase 3 stays under a covenant.
Right, so the original covenant was for Phase 2 and Phase 3, so we can only release part of the covenant. Is that correct?
You release the covenant for Phase 2, but not for Phase 3.
I thought they were combined in the way they were worded, unless I'm confused.
There's a different street under Phase 3.
Okay, but it's only one document, right?
It was submitted at the same time, but it was phased so that there's two different phases under the one modification that was done.
Okay, but I'm talking about the wording of the covenant, which I'm still trying to find. Okay.
The covenant release references Phase 2.
Mr. Chairman, the original covenant covered everything on the subdivision plan, which was recorded in the registry. There was no distinction in the definitive plan for phases 1 and 2, so it covered the entire thing, which is Starboard Drive and Beacon Street. The tripartite agreement is for Phase 2, and that's what the partial release would be for.
That's what I was trying to say.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review Charlie's comments on the amount to be released?
Well, first, we have to do the covenant before we do a release of funds.
No, I was just curious if you've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels.
Okay,
I need this back.
it's yours. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so we have before us a request to release the covenant for Phase 2. I would entertain a motion to approve said release.
Wait, we have to read the wording, I think.
Okay.
That was in the email you sent me this morning.
Okay, so here's the release form that I need to read into the record, but of course it's not filled out. Give me a second to fill this out for you, Tim. Okay, so I think this is what I'm supposed to be reading, Charlie, the covenant release form filled out. So the undersigned, being the planning board of the town of Wareham, hereby certify that Bay Point Club LLC, holder of a covenant dated 2/12/2019 in the town of Wareham, Plymouth County, Mass., recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Book 40976, page 207, and hereby acknowledges satisfaction of the terms thereof, releases the covenant and any right, title, and interest in all the lots designed on a plan entitled
The title is the Bay Point Club Mixed Use Development Project, definitive plan submittal,
Okay.
special use permit, site plan review in Wareham, Massachusetts.
I can't get all that on this line. Really?
Mike, would you?
Gotta write small.
Would you repeat the book and page where the covenant is recorded?
I have on this document here that's been supplied to me, book 40976, page 207,
That's probably the first one.
and then book 47864, page 341.
The covenant.
That's correct.
The covenant that's referred to in this, for phases 2 and 3, is recorded in book 55766, page 225.
Yeah, let's not mix
Recorded on
up the
August
fir-
9th
the
of
first
2021.
covenant.
Well, that's what I've got to work off of. I got a blank sheet of paper with no information on it.
I thought, well, no, you had an email this morning that you sent me that I thought had the wording in it. That you got from Charlie, Charlie's proposed wording.
What was that book and page number that you had, Charlie?
56714, page 74, or 55766, page 225. There's another one. There's a whole bunch of them in here. That's why I'm concerned that we get the right release.
Yeah.
Mr. King, may I make a suggestion? I
Sure.
view this to be an administrative act. If you would like to get that correct, I might like to edit it, make sure it's also, or I might like to review it to make sure it is also correct. And we can,
See, as how this is gonna end up in the registry of deeds, it's probably a good idea we get it correct.
that's, yes, and then you can just vote on it at the next meeting to adopt it, if that makes sense. I'm fine with that.
Sounds pretty logical.
I think that I like that, because I don't like the way this is going. I don't feel comfortable.
I don't even know what you're looking at, so.
Yeah, well, I've got one piece of paper that says one thing, then I've got Charlie's information that
So
says something else.
let's get it right, and then we'll just administratively vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sounds
I think that's a great idea.
Great idea.
All right, so do we need a motion to correct the paperwork with the right book and page so that we release this covenant properly and act on it on the next meeting, which is,
I think the next meeting is the 14th. Or whatever, 12th, or whatever we
The
decided.
14th of
14th
November.
of November.
Right.
All right. So do we have that motion to act on this
So
on the
moved.
14th? Second?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Jane Gleason, to continue the conversation, correct the paperwork, and act on releasing the covenants on November 14th, giving Mr. Fay a chance to review the documents well prior to it to make sure that our Ts are crossed and our Is are dotted.
Excellent.
All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And
Mike,
chair
if you
votes
can-
aye.
If you can just read to me the first line of the second paragraph. It says something about Phase 2. And I don't have it on this old copy, but if you give that to me, I'll give this copy to Tim, and he'll have the document information that he needs to look at.
On the second,
You know, whatever the document was, I passed to Sam, and he gave it to you. Lots 1, 2, and 3 for 38 building sites.
yep, in Phase 2.
Phase 2, that's what I wanted to know.
Yep, with driveway access on Starboard Drive. Yeah, because all
Yep.
this has got nothing to do with this. It's
Yeah.
all different.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks, Tim. Sorry about this.
That's all good. Thank you.
We'll get it all squared away so that next time we see you,
Yeah.
we'll get it all signed and get the covenants released. Charlie, can we act on the tripartite?
Not until that covenant's
Till the
released.
covenant, right, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay.
Is it worth trying to get the
Oh,
paperwork squared
I-
away?
I was hoping that we could act on the tripartite agreement. That
If
money
we can't
is-
act on it until the covenant's released. I mean, the only thing I could do is try to,
We've completed a certain amount of work. The work has been inspected by Mr. Rowley. He has put a dollar value on it. The work has been inspected by Superintendent Candice. He's put a amount on it. It's approximately $298,000.
no, Charlie's revised numbers based on his report that I have, revised it down from 341 to 118.
Correct. And in that report, he asked for additional documentation from Superintendent Candice, which I have provided. I believe that you have that. He has communicated with the board in an email saying that he has signed off on the additional work.
Did you see that one?
Yes, but as I mentioned at our last meeting, I do not accept Mr. Rowley's recommendation on the value. I accept the recommendation on the work completed. As I stated last time, I do not believe any amount of the contingency funds should be released. And we discussed that, and I think the board should take Mr. Rowley's input, and we have to make a decision on that. Contingency funds were not well, if we're going to discuss it, I can re-argue my point, but
I do have the notation from Mr. Candice. What line, where do you see the contingency funds, Carl?
on the spreadsheet, it's listed on the column on the right, I believe. It was added. But if you go back to the original discussion and vote for the tripartite agreement, it was awarded as a percentage uplift and not a line-by-line uplift. And contingency funds apply to the whole project, in my opinion, not line items in the project. So that would be the argument I put forward to the board.
And how much was that figure?
We'd have to calculate it. I don't have the spreadsheet, I just have a Word document.
I have a spreadsheet, but I'll be damned if I can read it, it's so small.
No, but I meant to actually run the calculation. It's not actually a spreadsheet.
Is that something that we can do? Do you have access to that sheet that we could do a calculation? I would have to agree with Mr. Schultz. I don't think the contingency fund should be prorated over the course of the project. It should be held for unforeseen issues.
I would respectfully offer a different opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
The line items were specifically identified by contract. They were then discussed in this forum. The line items were marked up, and then there was a dollar amount put on it. As those individual tasks are complete in their entirety, the board suffers no possible consequence of those individual actions. So the markup of contingency held till the end is a ridiculous amount of money being held on the latter events that are taking place. So the exposure is the completion of individual tasks. The amount of money has been marked up substantially. As the task is completed in its entirety, you have no liability to complete that task, which is the objective of the surety that I'm placing. So I would find that to be quite burdensome to say that we're going to just we'll withhold it in its entirety.
Respectfully, Mr. Fay, I've been doing contract projects for my entire career, and every project had a contingency fee, and the contingency fee was released as part of the project, in my experience. So we have different experiences.
I understand that, but with respect to this document and these specific items, we're placing surety to do certain things. And as that work is complete, and Mr. Rowley confirms that it's complete, the liability then is removed from the board's exposure to complete that line item. That's
Except, and my view is the board's liability is to complete the entire set of items,
The entire project.
the entire project.
I would have to agree. I think by keeping the surety intact until the end of the project, it keeps your eye on the ball on getting the project completed and done.
We can, that's why I said, I put forth my argument, the board can either agree with me or not. Mr. Rowley did not agree with me last
I
time.
think that's a change of the agreement that was signed by three parties, myself, yourself, and my financial institution where the surety is placed.
And as I read the tripartite agreement, the line items were not attached to the tripartite agreement. Just a total dollar figure and an uplift. That's how I read it, and if I'm mistaken, I can be...
It was calculated based on substantial discussion with Mr. Rowley, and the calculation was based on those line items. I think Mr. Rowley would agree that it's how we got to the dollar amount.
Charlie, when I asked you if we could act on this, you said that without the covenant release, we can't act on it anyway, correct?
That's correct. It's a formality that needs to be done.
Yeah, so it's kind
The
of,
total-
at this point, it's a moot discussion.
The total amount was based on those line items, yes, so you knew exactly how much you got to the dollar amount.
Yep.
But the percentage, I was just trying to look it up to see whether it was 25 or 35%.
It's 25, I thought, right?
I don't recall.
I'm looking
I got to
for
go
the
back and find my original letter.
I
that
believe it's
made the
35%.
recommendation.
Was it 35? Oh, okay. I'm looking for the tripartite agreement, so...
The amount in the tripartite agreement is $1 million some odd dollars, so if you take 35% away from that, it'll give you the original cost of the security that was done.
Yep. But again, we can't act on it until the covenant's released.
In my opinion, you should get that part of it done, yes.
Okay, so this part of the discussion is more arbitrary as to how we're going to release the funds.
It's a personal disappointment and a hardship.
We'll try to get this paperwork corrected and back to you sooner than the 14th meeting. And if we can get it corrected and reviewed and everybody's in agreement, then maybe the board can call a special meeting so that we can relieve you of this burden quicker than later.
I have the tripartite agreement, and you're right, Mr. Fay, all that's in the tripartite agreement is a total number, and it doesn't really even talk about the contingency fund. I thought it was in there. It was really my listening to the discussion, but tripartite agreement just has a single number.
And that single number is broken out in the spreadsheet that Mr. Rowley and
I agree. I'm just
Yes.
talking about the agreement.
Okay.
It doesn't even mention 35% or anything in the,
It just shows the final number.
which weakens my argument. I agree that would weaken my argument.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so,
Just one other thing, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the request for the security release. On my letter of the 12th of September, I said that I felt that you should receive something from the Water Department that said that everything was done.
I thought we did.
We got that this morning.
So long as you're comfortable with the email dated October 17th from Mr. Candias,
Yep.
I guess it is superintendent, then we could consider whatever the amount is in the request for the release.
The total amount.
I'm not saying do it tonight.
Right, but
All
the
I'm
total
saying is,
amount, the original
now that you know what
300,000.
that is,
Yep.
now that you have the letter, you could, in effect, include the cost, which I said was
So 170.
to be reduced by whatever Onset's portion of it was.
Yeah, it was right here, 172,000. So
Yes.
if he's signing off on that, then when we reconvene, then
Correct.
now
You could
those funds
consider
would
that, too.
obviously be available,
Correct.
which would raise the number of two-something right up to the,
So that was in my letter to the planning board and Mr. Buckland earlier, taking it to the full amount with Mr. Candice's inspections and sign-off.
yep, which we got today at 1:30. So, all right, so we will, we'll get the release of the covenant corrected as soon as possible, and if possible, just call a special meeting for 5 minutes to get it done for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay? So right now, it's scheduled for the 14th, right? We're all set with that. Okay.
Before we close, so just as a note to the board and to Mr. Fake, because you're here, I think we need to go back and ensure that the covenant for Phase 1 was properly released. I went back through the record and I couldn't find a vote that properly released it. And that's, again, as you said, an administrative thing that we should clear up. And also, the tripartite agreement for Phase 1, I believe, has expired and was not properly extended, and the work is not completed. So I think we need to look at that as well. If you could examine that and make sure my reading, you agree with my reading of Phase 1. We don't want that agreement to expire.
We'll do that.
And the board can look at it as well. But I think it said the work would be completed within 2 years, if I remember correctly, 2 years of the date. And that date has passed. So we just need to, that's another, I think, administrative action that we should take to ensure that the paperwork is complete.
Very good.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Continued public hearings, 3321 Wareham, PV1 LLC, 0 Route 25. The applicant has requested a continuance to 11/14. So there'll be nothing heard on that this evening. And other topics not reasonably anticipated. I'm going to leave that to board member comments, so that we can bring a few things to the table and see if we can maybe sharpen our focus on the future as a board. So I will open it up to board member comments. Oh, wait a minute. No, we have to continue. Do we have to formally continue this? We didn't take a vote to accept their continued request.
Oh, you're right,
Yeah.
we do. We need to formally.
Mr. Chair,
Sir?
Betsy Mason is the one who is for this one, I assume.
Yep.
She had raised her hand.
Okay. Well, since we're still on that subject, then we can let her in.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Betsy Mason, Clayman's Law Group, 420 Boylston Street, Boston, Massachusetts, for Wareham PD1 LLC. I just raised my hand because I wanted to make sure that you actually voted to continue. So,
Okay. Well, I caught myself.
it seems that it seems you're about to, so I stand down.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, because Ms. Mason's on the phone, and we're sort of talking about it, I did ask Mr. Buckland to send you a request, and I don't know if you were here earlier when we were talking about the Borrego New Leaf project.
Yes.
Regarding your decommissioning plan, can you review it and add appropriate discussion of decommissioning
Batteries.
the auxiliary battery storage? I think I read it, and it was still, everybody's was kind of silent on that. And I don't want to
Let
cause a
me,
delay, so if you could just look at that.
Sure, and I'm sorry, can you just, I was here for that New Leaf discussion earlier, but revise the decommissioning plan to address what will be done with the auxiliary battery?
Yes, how they'll be removed, and add a cost line item should you default and the town have to do it.
Okay.
That was we hadn't, and I know that was a completely new request, and that's why I'm throwing it at you so we don't add delay. If you can think about that before our next meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I may, all right. Okay, I will bring that back to our engineering folks, and if they have questions, I will reach out to Mr. Buckland if that sounds good to you, that's acceptable to you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give you a heads up. And we've already talked about your project in PFAS, and
I was gonna say, we don't want to get too deep into the discussion if we're going to.
I know, I was just going to ask her if she's part of the Plymouth group, but I don't know if
No,
that's
I don't think
appropriate.
we should wait.
point of order.
Yes, we should wait. All right, so I entertain a motion to continue 33-21 site plan review for Zero Route 25 to the meeting of November 14, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Carl Schultz. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Oh, Alan left? Oh, shit.
Yes.
Aye.
Sam?
Yes,
Carl?
Yes.
Chair votes aye.
he's gone. He snuck.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Board member comments?
Nope.
Yes.
Get on.
Ms. Quirk and I, as well as another citizen of the town, and that's why I wanted Alan to be here, made a presentation at a Board of Selectmen meeting recently. I don't think it was, I don't know how many they've had since then, but on an approach to dealing with alternative energy issues that face the town. And we made an extensive set of recommendations, which I think we can forward to the, I don't know if we forwarded it to you before or not. In any case, the Board of Selectmen did not act on our recommendation to form a committee to begin addressing these issues. And there are many components of the issues that face. Utility-grade battery storage is one. Wind power, solar, hydropower, and a bunch of others, plus the ability to react to any feedback from the AG on the current solar bylaw, and begin addressing and creating opportunities for the town to develop business, adjust the master plan, a whole lot of work that needs to be done in these areas. And the idea behind it was to be, and Sherry, jump in here at any time, the whole idea was to be proactive rather than reactive and have to respond should something that's not anticipated occur.
Yeah, and part of this was finding out, as I was looking at the queue, prompted by our, the folks from Borrego, there are several battery storage projects in the queue, which means that they're being studied, and they're of significant magnitude. So somewhere out there, there are some battery storage projects that it would be good for the town and maybe preliminarily for this board to look at and have some thoughts on.
Right.
That's one thing.
And as you heard Mr. Slavin at the last meeting, he talked to utility-grade battery storage. There are projects that are being put forth by the state, and because of the way our use table is written, they could come in as of right and put a large-scale battery storage unit in the industrial commercial zone.
That's one I might not agree with that.
Okay, well, that's one interpretation. But in further also, I think Carver's finding that even though they had bylaws prohibiting it, they're attempting to overrule it. So at best, we may be protected because it's silent and there's some ambiguity around the use table. But at worst, we're exposed because we don't have clear either a clear moratorium, talking about utility-grade battery storage. But also, there's a hydro plant coming down. Parker Mill Dam is a potential hydro project. There's no position in the use table to approve that. So anyway, we listed a whole bunch of work that needed to be done. And the select board did not act on our recommendation, and they're going to think about it. But Mr. Slavin's pushback was, that's planning board work. You guys should deal with it as the planning board. And that is a useful comment, or perhaps even an appropriate comment. The problem is the amount of work involved in doing that. But I think that the board should be aware that this is, I mean, as well as we have other issues with zoning, this is an issue that will be before us sooner rather than later, I think. And so I don't want to, I mean, Sherry can maybe take this step forward. I don't know if I want to recommend that the board deputize a subcommittee to begin acting on this, or...
At the very least, studying it.
Yeah. I mean, because the problem, and we know, with making changes to zoning bylaw, we have 2 chances a year. And the work to get ready for each of those town meetings is enormous, and public hearings and research. We end up right up against, as we are with this town meeting, right up against the wall with, you know.
We end up with a lot of hard work and diligence that, because we're trying to deal with several subjects, ends up getting watered down, and we never really get the product that we're looking for to present at town meeting.
Right.
So I think if we look at something like this, we have to prioritize. I think we should look at the challenges that we're facing in zoning and prioritize them and pick one for the next meeting.
And in fairness to Mr. Slavin, he said exactly that for the town, that there's so many things that are facing the town. He wasn't sure this made it to the top of his list.
Right.
But he did say the planning board could take it on.
So we'll have to decide if this makes it to the top of our list.
Yeah. To that end, maybe Sherry, we could send the board a copy of our presentation. I don't know.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean,
I
I'd
mean,
like to see it.
Yeah, we can certainly share that with you. And I think that what we were trying to emphasize is that we might have a chance at this point to be more proactive and less playing catch-up, as we have been doing with the solar issues, where we're running as fast as we can to jump onto the truck that's driving off to get something done. And I think there are some issues really to think about with not just battery storage and solar, but some other issues facing the town as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see that presentation. All right.
So that's my comment.
That's your comment?
For this week.
Excellent.
I mean, we also, I think, just for your benefit, Mike and other members of the planning board, we talked a lot about energy efficiency, which is a source of real savings and money for the town. It's probably not under the planning board per se, but Mike, I know you have a big interest in finding ways to save money for low-income people, and this is a way of doing that we may separately pursue.
Yeah, Aaron had got a grant for this, and Mr. Buckland is running with that. And I think individually, some of us have volunteered to support Mr. Buckland in that effort, even though I haven't gotten back to him yet. I did send you a note, Ken, saying I'll follow up with you, and I haven't forgotten my commitment. But that is something that the town needs to pursue. We have this grant. More money would be available if we execute on this grant. We can't let it languish. We can't let it slip through our hands because we didn't.
What are the specifics of the grant?
Aaron presented it last fall, and it was really, I think, and Ken may be better to speak. It was a multi-phase grant. The first phase is we have to show that we're doing education, outreach, particularly to affordable or economically disadvantaged communities, and there has to be communications and outreach and things like that. And then once I think you get momentum behind successes there, more grant money for more work can follow behind that. Is that a fair summary, Ken?
It's essentially Mass Save for a local community. Mass Save, as you may know, is a program that the power companies sponsor to increase energy efficiency in homes and businesses. And this is taking it to the local level and applying the people on the ground to reach out to people in need or ones who may not get the information readily available to them, that they can, even renters can get energy efficiency in certain ways and get savings out of the program. So this is what the idea is, to try to get some of that outreach. We're going to be doing a newsletter pretty soon. It'll get distributed to downtown businesses and look for them to participate in energy efficiency. So it's not just homeowners or people who live in town, it's also the businesses as well.
Okay, very cool. All right. Mike, you have any comments? Nothing?
No.
I find that hard to believe.
No me.
Nothing.
Sam, you had nothing going on? All right, I'm gonna,
Can I add something here a minute?
no, I don't think so. Go ahead.
Town meeting is next Monday. What I put into your packets was motions for the articles, the zoning articles, so that they can be read into the record at the time that the articles come up.
Yep, I have those.
And what they have is the one for the window, the signs in the window, the 25% sign limitation in the windows and doors, is the one that has to be read out on town meeting floor to present to the town meeting to get their approval if they so deem it appropriate.
Okay, and you're gonna prepare what's gonna get read?
Yeah, I already have, and it should be in your packets.
No, I don't have anything other than one line item that says that there's no explanation to the request.
These are just the motions.
Yep, so we don't owe,
We'll add the explanations to those as well, too.
yeah, as I say, we don't owe the townspeople an explanation as to what it is we're asking them to consider?
And that comes with that was written into the original articles as well.
Oh, okay.
So what we'll do is we'll put those into the
Into the what?
into the motion. This is just for the motion that gets read onto the record.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Do we need to vote, and so you can report on planning board vote for these?
That'd be appreciated, yeah.
I thought we already voted on these.
I thought we did too.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, we've already voted on these.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then
We did it, because that's when you got frustrated with me.
Well, or you with me, but,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, so we're going forward with all, okay.
Right.
So I'm happy with that. I just didn't remember that we officially took that.
Did we fix the glitch
Yes,
on one?
we fixed it.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so, Sam? Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Sam, seconded by Jane. All in favor of adjournment? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam? Carl, I know you want to stay.
Everybody else wants
Okay.
to. Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Good night, everybody. Thank you.